Hello, my fellow nerds out there. It's Historical Nerd Richie, and welcome back once again to the PokéMonth Countdown Specials. So, last two episodes, we covered the normal and fighting types from my previous top 10s, and this time we're going to be covering the next one that's in my list of rotation, if I remember right. The element of air, the act of flying, birds. These three things describe the type that is simply known as the flying type. So, yeah, it's top 10 flying types this time. And don't worry, we're almost done. I would say we're almost done with the list, but this is like the third type out of, 18? So, yeah, those who are actually sticking with the series, for one, I thank you very much. But second of all, this is going to be a long month, so sit back, enjoy the ride, and be sure to let your pilot or any co-host know if you have any problems. So we're going to be counting down today my top 10 favorite flying type Pokemon this time, ascending from my least to most favorite. And don't worry, it's the same rules as the previous list, so you won't really be lost along the way. So without further ado, let's get started. Chatot. Now this is probably one of the first parrot Pokemon to exist that we all know of, and you'd probably be right about that. The parrot Pokemon Chatot. I really adored this thing since it was introduced back in Generation 4. And yeah, Generation 4 is when I started playing Pokemon for the first time. Specifically, it was Heart Gold and Soul Silver, even though technically it was the Johto region, but they're Gen 4 remakes. It's complicated. I started with a remake. But like other Pokemon that were introduced in that generation, I actually grew pretty attached to Chatot, mostly due to its role in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, where it was the right-hand Mon of the Guildmaster Wigglytuff. And yes, the pun was intentional. In the core series, it's an okay Pokemon at the very least. Its main move is probably still its signature move, is Chatter, which is a move that has decent power and has a relatively okay chance to confuse the opponent. The main gimmick of this move is that you can actually record your voice on the DS, and Chatot would actually repeat that word or phrase back to you. It's a parrot. It's basically doing what most parrots are capable of doing. In later generations, they sort of removed this feature for, well, pretty obvious reasons. We don't want my Pokemon saying any profanities. This is supposed to be a clean household, thank you very much. But anyways, Chatot has always been pretty underappreciated in my eyes. I really did like the gimmick they were going for with it as well, even though most people took advantage of that and say the most heinous things ever, especially in competitive scene. My god, would anyone ever use Chatot in competitive is my question. But the other appearance that it mainly had was actually in the Manaphy movie, where it was the right-hand Mon of the main villain, simply known as the Phantom, a pirate who was really not that great at being a pirate, apparently. and aside from that, I never once used Chatot in any game that it was available in, not even in its home game. Probably because I never actually played Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum, but trust me when I say if I could use it on my team, I most totally would. I don't know, maybe if I ever get Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, I'll probably try it in that game. But besides that, I think I would want to I would definitely want to be in the process of trying to make the world's strongest Chatot. Just you wait. This bird will definitely destroy and sweep your entire team. Just you wait. Squawkabilly. Yet another underappreciated parrot Pokemon that many people tend to overlook as just another bird for the region. Something that was thought would have been the original bird, until it wasn't, and we got introduced to its 4 different forms. And honestly, I kind of am just noticing this a little bit now, but I think pretty much all 4 of these colors were used on Chatot. Wait, Oh wait, yeah, all 4 of these colors were literally used on Chatot. Blue, yellow, green, and white. There's a conspiracy going on here. I just don't know what it is. But again, being another Pokemon based on a parrot, this one takes the inspiration to a completely different level. And also, fun fact, its base stat total is only 6 points higher than Chatot. I guess having 4 different variants means that you're just stronger than the previous parrot Pokemon. And yes, there are literally only 2 parrot Pokemon, and it isn't really saying much when Chatot is your only competition. But as a bird Pokemon as a whole, I don't know, it's okay. There are 4 different colors of them, green, blue, yellow, and white. Each of them has their own unique things about themselves. And most of these unique things are in these violet dex entries rather than the scarlet dex entries, because I have Pokemon Scarlet, not Violet. So, allow me to read some of these entries for you. Apparently the green Squawkabilly apparently are the largest group and have the most sway. The blue ones see the green ones as their rivals. The yellow ones drive other bird Pokemon out of town, meaning that they're jerks. And the white ones are the fewest in numbers, but they don't mind just chilling around cities because they blend in with the buildings. And if you ask me, yes, I do indeed like their shiny form, even though the shiny form is just the friggin' cowlick, but it's pink, and the plumage doesn't change at all. Though, now that I think about it, now that I look at the other Pokemon like Hippopotas and Tatsugiri, who also have different colors depending on whether they're regular or shiny, I can see where the confusion would probably be the most confusing. So having 4 different colored shinies for each of these parrots would be kind of annoying. Honestly, smart move, Pokemon. I kind of like that. Okay, back to my actual thoughts. All of them basically have uniqueness in their dex entries, but as Pokemon, none of them are really that unique. They're all basically the exact same, sharing the exact same stats, move pools, and abilities, etc. With only one small difference: the hidden abilities. The green and blue ones have the same hidden ability, while the yellow and white ones share the other. Green and blue have the guts ability for a hidden ability, while yellow and white have sheer force. As to why they made it like this, I honestly don't really know. But it is a good way to try to differentiate them, especially when they are all pretty much the exact same Pokemon, regardless of what their plumage color is. It's really odd. Does make me kind of think why these things are the taxi service in the Paldea region. I mean, not going against it though, because the only other serviceable bird Pokemon for taxi is Corviknight, and we all know what Pokemon hunts Corviknight. Yeah, here's a hint. It's a tiny little pink gingerbread woman with a gigantic hammer. But yeah, even so, I honestly really like Squawkabilly and Squawkabilly. Why don't you say Squawkabilly? It's Squawkabilly. I can't pronounce their names correctly for some reason. Anyways, I actually did use a Squawkabilly on my team in Scarlet for a little bit. Specifically, it was the green one, and because green is my favorite color. And even so, I like this Pokemon. It's a neat addition to the series, and I really hope to see more of this Pokemon later on. But no, in all seriousness, these guys literally are the exact same colors as Chatot. Are we sure them and Chatot are not like cousins or something? Tropius. Yet another flying type that's super underappreciated for quite a lot of reasons. And don't really know why. He's got a really cool design and all that, but you know, I like it for a lot of reasons, so let's just start off with the reason why people don't like this thing. First of all, it's grass flying type, meaning it has quite a lot of weaknesses, including rock, fire, flying itself, you know, the typing that it actually is, and one of which being a 4 times weakness to ice. Not to mention the poison weakness and the rock weakness. It's a mess. Honestly, Tropius just doesn't get as much love as any other Pokemon as I know. The only buffs it tends to get is probably a change to its stats, maybe a few new moves, and that's about it. And sure, it can learn moves like Dragon Hammer via breeding, but that requires an Alolan Executor, an all-around better grass type that's also, for some reason, 4 times weak to ice, now that I take a look at and notice the typing. Jeez, why do I like so many Pokemon that are just weak to ice? And ice isn't even that good of a typing in Pokemon, it's a glass cannon. But we're not going to touch the ice typing for quite a long time, so anyways, back to some of the negatives of Tropius. Oh yeah, 4 times weak to ice. Being a grass and flying type, it basically is 4 times weak. It basically is just useless against any ice types. Seriously, 1 ice shard and this thing is dead. And I think that 4 times weakness is probably one of the reasons why I kind of avoided using it until Scarlet and Violet. But I don't think I liked it for how good it was in battle. I think I just liked it for its design. Being a winged dinosaur, or I guess a Bronchiosaurus with 2 pairs of wings, I just thought that was a really neat idea at the time. I just didn't think it was gonna be a grass and flying. And yeah, while grass is one of my favorite types, it's also one of the types that has the most weaknesses. I think you guys know why. Excuse me. But the fact that this thing has so many weaknesses, not many resistances, and is only good against bug fighting and grass itself, another typing that it also is, just sort of paints it as a Pokemon of irony. It just doesn't feel like it should be this weak. It should be stronger. I don't know, maybe, I know I keep mentioning it, but maybe when Legend ZA comes out, Tropius can get, maybe a Mega Evolution of some sort of buff, anything from my favorite green flying dinosaur here. I don't know, perhaps it will get more attention in the future, and I really do hope it does get attention because it's such a cool Pokemon, it has such a good design, but its typing and stats are just not that great. Still, I enjoy having this Pokemon on my team, even if I would only use it just because the Water Gym is coming up next. I'm looking at you, Kofu. Mandibuzz. Yet another Gen 5 Pokemon has made the list, and no, I'm not sorry for this one. Mandibuzz is probably one of my favorite flying types, as well as one of my favorite dark types, but, I'm not gonna cheat and put the same Pokemon on 2 different lists. So, flying type it is. So, Mandibuzz. Going back to Gen 5 for another entry, Mandibuzz is another one of the many Pokemon that I have an attachment towards. Mostly from its appearance in the anime, but I also liked it pretty much in the games. And one of the first Gen 5 games I got was, admittedly, I actually got Pokemon Black 2. I never played Black and White, so my mom actually got me Black 2 for Christmas one year, and I sort of just liked Black 2, but I didn't get that far in it because I always got lost after the Electric Gym, and I had no idea which way I was supposed to go after I actually eventually got to the Ground Gym. Seriously, you beat Clay, and then where the hell are you supposed to go to next? Everything is basically too high level for you. I don't know why, maybe I just didn't like the prospect of grinding too much, but speaking of grinding, from Mandibuzz's intimidating design to its tech combo, which by the way is Dark Flying in case you wonder, I like the looks of it as a strong, bulky support Pokemon that could round out any team, and it totally could do that, provided that you go through the trouble of actually getting one. Mandibuzz evolves from Volibile via level up, which doesn't really sound too bad on paper. Just level it up a few times and it should evolve, right? Well, that is until you realize that Volibile doesn't evolve until somewhere near the mid-50s. Level 54 to be specific. So you're gonna be stuck with an Eviolite holding Volibile, or even a Lucky Egg holding Volibile, until then. And by then, you'd probably already have a champion level team. So why would you want to use a baby Pokemon for the Elite Four? And honestly, despite its many drawbacks, Mandibuzz is still one of my favorite Pokemon to use, even even if it takes a long ass time to obtain it. I mean, and honestly, I don't even know if I want to be stuck with a Vullaby. At that point, I just want to catch a Mandibuzz outright so I can just use it for my team. But even then, Mandibuzz still kind of pales in comparison to any other flying type that you can find. Even though its move pool isn't actually the worst, but it's far from the best. It's not a bad Pokemon by any means, but it can definitely give your team that bulk that it really needs at the best of times. And even at the worst of times, it's still not too bad of a Pokemon to use. And yeah, the Fairy weakness is pretty crushing, considering that Fairy is one of the best typings in the entire game. But even so, I still find myself pretty attached to Mandibuzz, while everyone else would pretty much find themselves attached to Braviary because it has high attack, it's a great Pokemon to use, and even got a Histilian form. I just think Mandibuzz deserves a bit more love than it actually gets. Noctowl. I think I'm one of the only people out there that will actually defend Gen 2 with all of my life. Noctowl just has one of those intriguing design philosophies of just being based on an owl. We didn't really have any owl Pokemon in Generation 1, at least I'm pretty sure we didn't. So when Gen 2 came around, we got Noctowl and its pre-evolution Hoot. And honestly, going back to Generation 2, I noticed there wasn't much love for many of the flying types in that region. But unless you're talking about Crobat or Ho-Oh and Lugia, the legendaries of that region, Noctowl was one that was done pretty dirty. It did come back in Scarlet and Violet as a Pokemon you can find in Kitakami, but even now, its base stat total is only a bit stronger than Pidgeotto, being a base stat total of 452, which is pretty low considering this is a fully evolved Pokemon. And I'm not even gonna lie, Faulkner himself should have used one on his team. I know that, again, it's stronger than Pidgeotto, but it's a Johto Pokemon. If we ever get Johto remakes, please, for the love of Arceus, give Faulkner a Hoot and a Noctowl. They are Johto Pokemon, he is a Johto trainer, he should be showing off the Johto Pokemon. Anyways, ranting aside, and aside from me saying that there should be no Kanto Pokemon in my Johto gyms, being a fan of owls, I was really hoping that there will be a Pokemon based on an owl eventually. And when we got Noctowl, I was pretty much happy with it. Though that still doesn't explain why it has to be a normal and flying type. It can literally hypnotize living things. Surely flying psychic would have been a bit more justified here. But nope, it pretty much is one of the things that started the trend of every region must have a normal and flying type bird because that is how it should be. Like, seriously, we only have 3 pure flying types, Rookidee, Corvisquire, and Tornadus. Those are the only 3 pure flying types. Why can't we have more than that? And again, Noctowl literally sounds like a psychic type to me. But back to my actual script here. Oh yeah, I don't really have any opinions on it in battle. It's fine if you ask me, and a well-trained Noctowl can actually learn Moonblast, which is pretty useful against Dark and Dragon type Pokemon if it's well-trained enough. But I think we all know the real reason why it's on this list. And that's probably mostly because Ash himself had a shiny Noctowl in the anime. Like, seriously, you take one good look at Ash's Noctowl and not tell me you flipped out when you saw this thing was a different color than the Noctowl that appeared in the episode. Like, seriously, this thing wasn't pointed out as shiny until Barry in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I like its shiny color too. The gold really does stand out with the orange, or I guess it's kind of a weird yellow shade. I'm not really sure what color it's supposed to be. I just assume it's gold. But overall, Noctowl is one of my favorite flying types for a good reason. mostly because it's based on an owl, and the fact that Ash had one in the anime. Pretty much made me want to use one. And seriously, you can literally sweep the Elite Four Bruno's team with just Noctowl. And Noctowl was literally one of the weakest members of my team at the time. Flamigo. I think I'm one of the only people out here that can actually defend some of the goofiest Gen 9 designs out there, and I will definitely stand by my opinion that Gen 9 flying types weren't really all that bad. Seriously, it took us this long to get a Pokemon based on a Flamingo. Seriously, it was literally right there. Flamingo, Amigo, Flamigo. It is literally right there, Game Freak. You couldn't have made this a few generations earlier. But I digress. Flamigo is by far one of my favorite flying types. A flying and fighting type that you could get early in the game, I honestly kind of like that. And it even has good stats to boot. Please note that its base stat total is actually 500, which isn't all that bad, honestly, especially for a single basic Pokemon. In fact, I think it makes him one of the more overpowered ones. Though I'm more interested in its lore, in the lore of this thing. Its dex entry is going to state that it ties the base of its neck in a knot so the energy inside doesn't escape. But that sort of begs the question on how the hell this thing eats. Like, how are you gonna swallow things? Your neck isn't in a knot, my guy. How are you gonna eat? I'm guessing it's one of those things in Pokemon that you don't really tend to question, like how Greninja is supposed to eat even though it has its tongue as a scarf. Although Palutena does explain that maybe it's one of those rare ninjas that eats very slowly, but that doesn't make any sense. Anyways, back to Flamigo. Aside from that, I just find this Pokemon very endearing, design-wise, and it honestly felt a bit goofy and fitting for the world that it's in. Not to mention, it's actually pretty tough despite only having a base stat total of 500. This is because mostly of its hidden ability, Co-Star, which allows it to copy the stat changes of its partner Pokemon in a double battle. And honestly, a hidden ability like that is very freaking busted when used correctly. Like seriously, you go to any VGC event during the start of Generation 9, and you'd probably be seeing Flamigo everywhere, even more so than Hawlucha, a fellow flying fighting type. And it's not that I don't like Hawlucha, I do. I even got a full-on shiny one while I was playing Scarlet for the first time. But it's safe to say that you know, Flamigo is a pretty good second pick for any flying fighting type, or any even fighting types in general. And you're probably wondering why this thing wasn't even on my fighting type list to begin with. Well, that's mostly because I didn't really consider it. I considered it mostly for this list, and that was it. It looked more like a flying type. And even while many Pokemon were dominating the metagame at early stages, even in early Scarlet and Violet, here comes the goofy Flamingo that can just copy the stat changes of its partner and decimate an entire enemy team as if it were nothing. It just starts taking names as soon as it enters the battlefield. And it's honestly a mix of careful planning and strategy that I wouldn't mind using any day of the week. Also, that and again, the fact that its design is pretty freaking goofy. And you guys are probably wondering about its shiny form? I don't know. I like its shiny form a little bit. It's paler and just has the same pink as a regular Flamingo, but overall, yeah, I like Flamigo. It's a goofy, very funny Pokemon that I wouldn't mind using on my team, and honestly, I really hope to see it in the next generation. Rayquaza. Just because it's the obvious option doesn't mean it's the wrong option. Yeah, that's right, everybody. I'm secretly a member of Team Sky, the best evil team in all of Hoenn. But anyways, joking aside, I actually really do like Rayquaza. And no, it's not for the reasons that you think. Yes, I know, we all know why Rayquaza is broken. why Rayquaza is what it is, and we all know that Mega Rayquaza is absolutely busted in any competitive format that's allowed, and and honestly, and by any competitive format, I mean the only competitive format that it's allowed in, being anything goes. But I'm not here to talk about its broken-ass Mega form. I'm here to talk about Rayquaza itself and that's why I like it. First of all, its design. You guys probably know by now that green is my absolute favorite color, and when put like this, the accents of red, yellow, and black really do make the green stand out, especially since it is the third member of the super ancient Pokemon trio. And yes, that's what I call it. I do not call them the Weather Trio, even though that name is pretty apt. So yeah, I did end up liking it, especially since it had green, my favorite color of all time. And while I do like Kyogre and Groudon and their primal forms, I like Rayquaza even more, just as its standard form. And yeah, you guys probably know I don't like Mega Rayquaza. I do like its design, it's just a bit overbearing, and honestly, I don't really care much for the competitive scene. I just happen to be a casual player with a lot of competitive knowledge. And wouldn't you know it, my love for Rayquaza has actually become a bit more of a recent one rather than all the way back from Gen 3. And you know, it's also one of the only Pokemon that can stop Groudon and Kyogre from fighting, or completely destroying by flooding and drowning the entire world. And first appearing in Pokemon Emerald as the main box art legendary, it was already cool looking from the start. As I learned more about it, I quickly took a liking to it. It's also the biggest reason why I probably like it is probably has to come from MNJ TV. Again, Team Sky. We all know it's the best team ever, and its logo is literally based on Rayquaza. Look at it. Look at the two and tell me that they don't seem similar, because they are literally the same. Like Rayquaza, Team Sky, same picture. Anyways, my love for MNJ TV's channel aside, while the Team Sky series is more of a fanon thing than a canon thing, it helped me appreciate Rayquaza a bit more. Honestly, I was prone to being in the camp of liking Rayquaza at first, that is, until its Mega Evolution got introduced and ruined VGC, yada yada yada. We all know the history of that. But I just like it as a Pokemon in general, just the lore. And have you not seen that one manga panel where it flat out just stabs Zinnia in the torso? Like seriously, how is this allowed to be localized at all? Rayquaza just impales Zinnia with its tail, then blasts a Hyper Beam in her face. At least I think it's a Hyper Beam, it could be a Dragon Pulse, I don't really know, but seriously, this was in official Pokemon material, and you really think Rayquaza would show any mercy in the... If it didn't show mercy in VGC, you really think it's going to show mercy in the manga? The manga was... I know the manga is basically a different canon, but seriously, who thought this was a good idea? Anyways, aside from the shocking revelation of how violent this thing actually is, I honestly still kind of like this thing. It's a really cool design, honestly. Would have it on my team, and definitely something I would definitely ride into battle. Truly a Pokemon for our time. Gliscor. Yet another Gen 4 Pokemon has made the list, and Gliscor is Wait, is it the other Gen 4 Pokemon? Oh yeah, Chowdow was the first one. That felt so long ago now. But yeah, Gliscor is number 3 on this list, and for quite good reasons. For one, its design is pretty intimidating, even though not many people would think Gliscor is cool, especially since Landorus exists, it's essentially the cooler Daniel to Gliscor's Daniel, but I'm one who prefers to actually have friends, thank you very much. Gliscor was always a pretty cool Pokemon, being an evolution of a Generation 2 Pokemon Gligar, and you know me, I am a Johto baby, I love Gen 2 representation. Especially nowadays since Girafarig and Dunsparce both got evolutions. With only one of them being a good evolution and the other being kind of a joke. Anyways, back to Gliscor. I always thought Gliscor was a pretty cool Pokemon, and I thought it was underappreciated for the longest time, especially even though it had a pretty big starring role in the anime, as once again Ash owned a Gliscor. And with that being said, it even has really good abilities. Its main ability that people tend to use is Poison Heal, which heals the Pokemon whenever it's poisoned. So yeah, instead of taking damage from poison, the inverse happens. It gets healed by poison. And it even gained the newly introduced Stealth Rock at the time, which, by the way, Stealth Rock is a Gen 4 move. Gliscor is a Gen 4 Pokemon. Why not give it some coverage against anything that could hurt it? Not to mention it also learns Toxic Spikes and Spikes. Basically, it can set up all sorts of entry hazards while being an absolute menace to get off the battlefield. So much like Tropius, I avoided using this thing solely because it was 4 times weak to ice, and I tend to not to use Pokemon that have 4 times weaknesses. Well, then again, I use Meowscarada, who is 4 times weak to Bug, and I don't really complain about it because Bug's not a common attacking type. But back to Gliscor, that ice weakness is a massive problem for it. Not to mention its best stat is, weirdly enough, physical defense, being at base 125. Alright, personally I would have made it a bit tankier in the HP department than the physical defense department, since this looks like it could have been a very fast sweeper. Until the Pokemon decided not to make it a very fast sweeper, instead make it a bulky trap setup hazard sort of thing. Which, honestly, I'm not too far against. Just add some base at points to its HP and you got it. And base 95 speed isn't too bad, but it's not that great either. Where it truly suffers is its special attack stat, being at a very meager 45. At least I think it's base 45, I don't know, it could be lower. But then again, why would you want to run a special set on a Gliscor anyways, since when it's mostly a physical attacker? And again, once again, just like Noctowl, the reason why I love it so much is because Ash had one in the anime, and it was a pretty dang good one at that. It had one of the most beloved personalities of any of his Pokemon, going from a scary cat Gligar that barely could fly on its own, to a Chad Gliscor that wants to take down anything for its trainer. And even then, it was one of the only Pokemon to show up for Ash's reunion with all of his Pokemon. So, really simplifying how much love that it gets. And to be frank, I personally like Gliscor. Anytime I have a chance to use it on a team, I will. Oh yeah, I definitely will use this on my team. Even though Landorus has always been considered the better one, but I don't really care for Landorus. I actually like having friends, thank you very much. Xatu. Yet another Generation 2 Pokemon that I truly adore, even as if it's not that great in the competitive scene. Xatu was probably one of my first experiences with a really cool looking flying type that had green on it, and honestly, I really adore this thing. From starting off as a little baby Natu, which I really liked, especially when it came to the Native American inspirations. I myself am a very small percent of Native American, but although it may be a small percent, I still like it. Xatu is probably one of the psychic flying type. Another psychic flying type, where we have tons of psychic flying types apparently. But we have Lugia, we have Xatu, and we have Lugia Natu. We even have Sigilif years later, and it's a flying psychic type. So I'm willing to say that Xatu is pretty much the precursor to all flying in psychic type Pokemon. That may be a bold claim, but I wouldn't be bold if I didn't show my love for this Pokemon. So why do I like it? I mean, maybe its stats aren't that great. It still has pretty high special attack and special defense, which I for certain love, and it did reappear during Pokemon Sword and Shield as one of those outside overworld encounters that you can find that's not just randomly in the grass. For one, its design aspect is really interesting. Being based on regular totems from Native American folklore, it definitely has a design aspects there. But it also happens to be based on slightly on fortune tellers, as its dex entry states that can see into the past and future at the same time. And they mostly just stay still all day because that's what they're seeing. Although I'm not really sure how they are effective in battle if that's all they're seeing every single day. Maybe there's something more to Xatu that we don't really know about. And also, it is yet another Pokemon that Pokemon themselves pretty much skip over. It hasn't, aside from its stats and move pool changing every now and then, it basically gets 0 buffs. Like literally none. Like what? Can it get like reflected light screen and just be that kind of thing and that's it? I'm sure Xatu has some sort of hidden potential that we don't really know about yet, but I really hope that when Legends ZA comes out, they show more love to Johto Pokemon. Maybe an evolved form of Xatu or even a Mega Evolution again would help it. But even then, it still never got any sort of love at all. Its only main role in the anime was just being in one episode where there were 3 Xatu that could predict the weather and the future. Whereas in the games, the only major thing that Xatu has going for it is being part of Will's team. Twice, because Will has 2 Xatu. And he's also one of Will's possible sync pair Pokemon in Pokemon Masters. Now again, while I don't really use Xatu on any team that I've ever had, that wouldn't really stop me from using it. At the very least, they could try to give it a few buffs and a few other things aside from, being point fodder in Pokemon Unite. Like seriously, this thing has appeared in pretty much near every single Pokedex. Well, not every Pokedex, but you know what I mean. It's appeared in every game thus far, and even then, it barely even scratches the surface of being viable in competitive play. Even casual play is too much for this thing. Admittedly, Xatu is a bit of a left field pick for this video, but that doesn't mean I'm not gonna pick something like this. It just makes me appreciate Pokemon even more, just seeing that there are Pokemon that get left in the dust and nobody ever turns back to or talks about or even thinks about. Also, can I just say that Xatu actually kind of looks like an honorary member of Team Sky? I mean, it's green and yellow, and the logo is green and yellow, so why not just use it on Team Sky? I know I probably put it on my team, but seriously, my team, because they're just my application for Team Sky. I hope I immediately get accepted. But anyways, moving on to number 1. And finally, my number 1 favorite Pokemon in the flying type is Aerodactyl. Okay, look, call me a Gen 1er all you want, but I love Aerodactyl. Most fossil Pokemon tend to be pretty underwhelming, but especially since they're always really slow, pretty bulky, and very few of them have high attack power. But Aerodactyl sort of turns that thing on its head, being one of the first rock flying types to exist, and one of the very first Pokemon in lore, that is, because it comes from the ancient world. It honestly seemed pretty powerful when it first came out. Until it wasn't a generation later and many other generations later when power creep starts becoming a bit of a problem. Aerodactyl, being a rock and flying type, of course has the weaknesses that come with rock types, specifically rock and flying types, being steel, electric, even rock itself. Seriously, I don't understand how rock is neutral to rock. You hit a rock to a rock and barely anything happens. It shouldn't really be neutral, and yet it is. But I'm just complaining about nothing at this point. back to why I actually like Aerodactyl. Well, for one, its design is just really freaking cool. I love pterodactyl and dinosaur-like Pokemon, and honestly, probably enough to even start my own team. Move over, Team Sky. There's a new team coming around, and step aside, Team Frog. I'm calling myself Team Dinosaur at this point. But no, seriously, all love and seriousness. Glory to Team Sky. And honestly, I would probably definitely say that this flying type list definitely is probably inspired by Team Sky in the slightest. But I'm getting off track here. Back to Aerodactyl. The reason why I like it is because not only has it actually gotten some attention after its debut, it in and of itself even got the oh-so blessing of Mega Evolution, which makes it look even more beastly and determined to kill you. And it's yet another one that I really adore, especially when in the lore standpoint, where its dex entries go about saying that that Mega Evolution brings back the rocks that used to be a part of its body, which essentially means that every single regular Aerodactyl we've seen up until now has been incomplete, meaning that Mega Evolution is the one that brings back all the primal rage that it has. But at the same time, it also causes immense pain to Aerodactyl because he can't handle that sort of Mega Evolution. Which makes sense because it's an ancient Pokemon weaponizing a sort of modern mechanic. Oh god, it's kind of weird of me calling Mega Evolution modern, but we do have Pokemon Legends ZA coming out, so Mega Evolution is definitely coming back. Honestly, I don't really know. There's just something about Aerodactyl that I really like. From the moment it debuted in the anime of picking on Charmeleon, and for some reason it knew an obscure Japanese taunt, even though taunt wasn't really a move in Gen 1. Does that mean that Aerodactyl in that episode was a hacker or something? I don't know. Maybe it was an Aerodactyl actually from the underground Hoenn region. Who knows? But aside from that, Aerodactyl is just a really cool Pokemon, and honestly, I wish Ash caught an Aerodactyl so that he could use a prehistoric Pokemon on his team, and then it and Charizard could have some sort of rivalry side story going on or something. Seriously, there's a lot of missed opportunities in Pokemon. This is one of the biggest missed opportunities that they had. They literally could have done anything with Aerodactyl, and yet I hardly ever see it appear in the anime. It appears once in its debut episode in the debut generation, and then it appears again in Diamond and Pearl as a prehistoric Pokemon that gets out on the loose and starts wreaking havoc in town. And that's pretty much all I remember seeing of this guy. Aside from its Mega Evolution, it barely gets any love nowadays. But even so, I still love Aerodactyl to a point, and also it probably also helps for the reasons that I actually found a shiny one in Pokemon Go, like quite randomly. I have no idea how that happened. It just happened. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. This has been top 10 flying types for the aka PokéMonth special number 3, and I hope all of you enjoy. Let me know in the comments your favorite flying type Pokemon is, and if you're also a member of good old Team Sky. And I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.
You say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason.